Ladies and gentlemen, it was exactly half a year ago when I fired the first shot with my Smith carbine, and now the film is ready. But before we start talking about the beauty of this little rifle, let's put some lead in the metal plate with authentic Poltny metallic foil cartridges. Wow, that's a fun little rifle. I love it. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is your favorite historical gun channel again in bright and beautiful Hunglish language. Today I have a fine little cavalry arm from you straight from the American Civil War, from the time when breech-loading concept was still in its early days. This is the Smith Capping breech-loading carbine. Nice, isn't it? While the US government was conservative in arming the infantry and focused solely on muzzle-loading arms, the cavalry was kind of a research laboratory for the Ordnance Department, allowing new concepts to enter the military system. The cavalry had its special needs, of course, and the breech-loading concept did fit the mounted use much better than any muzzle-loading arm. Besides this practical reason, it was also important that arming the cavalry initiated with white paper, so as only a very few obsolete breech-loading cavalry carbines were available in the beginning of the Civil War, so the Ordnance Department had to be open for new firearms concepts, just to be able to give something to their troops. This resulted in a wide variety of carbines issued to the troops.
The Smith carbine is quite popular today among the black powder shooters, as not only originals are available in shooting condition, but we have a fair repro on the market as well, made by Pieta. Cases are available from various vendors, including plastic and brass cases as well.
The Smith carbine was the fourth most issued carbine of the conflict after the Sharps, the Burnside and the Spencer, and probably the best construction among all the percussion breech loaders. The Board of Ordnance bought 30,362 carbines till 1865. But before we go any further into the details of the Smith carbine, let me thank you for your support. Your donation through Patreon, buying our authentic Civil War revolver cartridge boxes or percussion revolver cartridge formers, Arsenal bundle label stamps or 19th century rangefinder repros help us to keep the quality high. Without you, this could not be possible, so thank you very much. And please, also do not forget that we also have a detailed written article about this arm on our webpage called capandball.com, which has much more information and also much more original sources. The link to this article is shared in the description below. Let's talk about the development of this rifle. Gilbert Smith was working on his solution to solve the gas leakage at the breech since the 1850s, and his solution was probably the most suitable for percussion breech loaders. His idea was to split the chamber into two halves and use flexible material, like rubber, for the cartridge case to seal the joint. Gilbert Smith submitted his first breech-loading carbine to the Board of Ordnance at the Washington Arsenal for testing in 1855. These tests found that his concept was unfit for service, therefore his arm was rejected. But the negative feedback did not stop Smith. In the following 2 years he submitted 4 patents connected to breech-loading arms. The third, number 17644 patent granted on 23rd June 1857, described a breech mechanism that accepted a cartridge with a case formed from an elastic material. The barrel of this gun slid forward for loading. It was not the same mechanism that we know today as the Smith breech loader. His fourth patent, number 17702 of 11 May 1857, described the cartridge itself. In making the cartridge case, or at least the cylindrical portion of it, of India rubber cloth or vulcanized India rubber for the purpose of serving as packing by its lateral expansion of the charge.
I ordered some plastic and brass cases from the US, and as the plastic case is closer to the original India rubber cartridges, I started the test shooting with that one. My rifle shoots quite high, probably because of the front sight, which is quite worn. But otherwise there was no problem with the grouping at 30 meters.
Én csak azt látom, ahol hátul belemegy a földbe. Itt egy picit fölé menne, nem?
Nem tudom. Ja, ott van magasan, igen, igazad van.
Ugye? Én csak a becsapódásra, hogy összekötöm a puskát csövével, meg a táblával.
Nem rossz ez.
De látod, mekkora luk van benne, az ujjam bele.
De konzekvensen egy helyre jövőben.
Igen.
Bocsánat, hogy arra fordítottam a csőt. És ez kihagyhatatlan.
The India rubber acted as our brass cases act in the chamber today. Upon firing, it expanded into the chamber and sealed the joint, while as the gas pressure dropped, it contracted and it was easy to extract. The case was a piece of India rubber cloth rolled up on a wooden or metal mandrel, same in size as the bore. The side of the cloth was covered with adhesive and the leather bottom with a touch hole was glued to the bottom. The new system was submitted for trials in 1857. The rifle was a 48 caliber gun firing a 330 grain elongated projectile with 40 grains of gunpowder. The report of the Ordnance Board was much better this time. It stated that the joint seemed to be completely closed by the packing of the India rubber cartridge case and the parts seemed to be simple and strong. The firing was uniform and very accurate. This arm loads with great facility. Smith did not have a manufacturing capacity to produce his arms, nor he had his sales network, so he had to use contractors to deliver the government orders. First, he teamed up with Thomas Poltny from Baltimore, and he submitted a new rifle concept to the official trials in 1858 in the Washington Arsenal. This was the Hink break action type we associate today with Smith's name. The 0.488 caliber rifle fired a cartridge holding a 402 grain bullet and 41 grains of black powder. The heart of the action is a brass button located forward the trigger. By pressing it, it just releases this large spring here, which will open the rifle. It opens nearly 90 degrees, which gives a beautiful access to the cartridge. The same year, Smith asked for a patent reissue, implementing some minor changes to the text. Probably the most important was to extend or expand the type of materials to form the cases from. Despite the successful trials, the Ordnance Department was not interested in this carbine for a year, but in 1860 they finally placed an order for Poltny and Trimble for 300 carbines at $35 a piece.
The plastic cases hold 40 grains of powder and accept the Erasgone Smith bullets perfectly. These cases are cheap and work exactly as they have to. They seal the joint perfectly. As I had more options to make cartridges, I decided to shoot all types to the same 30-meter distance to be able to compare the results. The trigger pull of the rifle is quite heavy, so I am sure that the group can be seriously improved from the rest.
The company failed to deliver, as it did not have proper production facilities, so Thomas Poltny looked for subcontractors who have large enough capacity for thousands of rifles. Massachusetts Arms Company seemed to be a good solution, but it was completely destroyed by a fire in January 1861. The same year in August, Poltny received the first large contract for 10,000 carbines from the government at a cost of $32.25 per piece. Another subcontractor had to be involved till the factory of Massachusetts Arms was rebuilt. Parts were supplied by the American Machine Works in Springfield, and the deliveries finally started, but the order fulfillment was below what Poltny confirmed when accepting the order. Not only the deliveries were slow, but also there were objections against the cost, and there were quality issues. There were many springs that broke, and also they had problem with the breaking of the trigger guard. This contract was forfeit, but the department purchased all the assembled guns at a price of $30 and later $27. Poltny tried to fight the decision and begged for additional lead time to deliver the remaining 4,000 pieces. His request was accepted, so he could fulfill the order till 1862. That was his first order. But in August 1863, the Massachusetts Arms decided to concentrate on the production of the Maynard carbine and pass the Smith business to American Machine Works entirely. Thomas Poltny moved the production to the American Machine Works. This company started producing machinery for gun making and castings and forgings from 1861, so they were quite experienced in this business. Based on a newspaper article, they produced 5,000 Smith carbines for Massachusetts Arms for the first order, and later they obtained an individual 12,000 pieces contract for Smith carbines in 1863. It is interesting that each Smith carbines have therefore 3 brand names stamped on the receiver. Gilbert Smith as the holder and owner of the patent, Poltny and Trimble as the principal contractor, and of course the name of the manufacturer. All 3 companies involved in the manufacturing had its own serial number ranges, meaning that the existence of double and triple serial numbers is mostly probable. Actually, there were 2 Smith carbine models produced. The early models had sling swivels attached to the front bend and to the stock. These were often called the artillery model, but in fact this rifle has nothing to do with artillery, these were cavalry arms. The later models had the carbine bar attached to the left side of the receiver. This is where you put the sling of the bandolier. And there are very few that are mixed of both, but this is very rare. Let's check the opinions about the Smith carbine. As usual with any Civil War arms, the opinion about the Smith carbine was controversial, very controversial. Some loved it, some hated it, but both the Navy and the Army officials actually found it fit for service. The first years of the war passed, the Ordnance Department faced constant logistic challenges due to the large number of arms serving in the Union Army. In 1862, 19 different breech-loading carbines were in service. The department had its own will to limit the number of contracts, but the first war years requested a very flexible approach to be able to give anything to the mounted troops. By 1862, the logistic chaos of the first period of the war eased, therefore efficiency, economy and standardization became the main goals of the organization. This was the reason why the US Congress established the Owen Holt Commission for auditing all existing contracts in 1862. The report was submitted on 1st July 1862 after a 3-month audit period. And this report set rules for each military purchases. First, the new arm concept had to be tested against the best in existence, the best of its kind in service. Second, a batch of 1,000 guns had to be purchased for further trials. And third, the captains of the companies had to report quarterly about the performance of this arm. These field reports flowing into the department, however, were anything but useful. Completed contradictory reviews arrived to the officers, but the evaluation of the Smith carbine seemed to be a good one. 17 officers rated it as the best, 46 as good, 11 as fair, and 4 as poor, and 8 considered Gilbert Smith's patent arms as worthless. This is not a bad balance at all compared to other Civil War arms. In 1863, the Ordnance Department established a board to set the specifications for a cavalry carbine to replace all existing models. The report was submitted in September with the following result. The diameter of the bore of the barrels should be 52 inches. Length of the barrel should be 22 inches. Weight of the piece not to exceed 8 pounds nor to be less than 6 pounds. The weight of the powder in the charge should be, in every case, at least of 1/10 of that of the ball.
Another option to shoot the Smith carbine today is to use turned brass cases. These are quite expensive but will surely last longer than the plastic versions. Their capacity is limited, only 24 grains of powder will fit in the chamber. I also had to open the case mouse on my lathe to accept the Erasgun bullet. The seal was not as good as with the plastic cases.
The board also named 5 cavalry carbines that should be manufactured with the 52 caliber bores. The Sharps, Gibbs and Star, because they can all be fired with the same paper or linen cartridge, and the Sharps and Hankins and the Ballard, as they could fire the cartridge of the Spencer. All other carbines in service remained unchanged, as their cartridges were unique, so any other modification would only increase the confusion. Even if the rules were set, the 19 carbine types remained in service. To make things more difficult, a new competitor appeared on the market, offering a highly effective breech-loading repeating rifle for the cavalry and both the infantry. This was the Spencer rifle, a clearly superior arm compared to any other models in service. By these times the cavalry arm was in transition, enforcing its dragoon or mounted rifleman application. The Spencer was an excellent choice for this concept, and Brigadier General Harrison Wilson, head of the newly established Cavalry Bureau, was a great supporter of the concept. Wilson submitted a report in February 1864, supporting the standardization and the upgrade to the Spencer rifle. But this only partially happened as the war ended before it could take place. Let's talk about the Smith carbine cartridges now. India rubber cartridges were made by several companies like the Pulteney and Trimble, the Schuler, Hartley and Graham, and W.J. Sims and Brother. The India rubber cases were advertised to be reloadable 15 times, but I really doubt that under any field circumstances the soldiers did eventually reload the cases. These cases were supplied to the army till April 1864. The reputation of these cartridges, however, were not good. The powder tended to spill out into the cartridge box through the touch hole while riding. There were several ideas to correct this problem, like making a smaller touch hole, like using larger grain powder, or obstruction of the touch hole with lubricating material, covering the touch hole from the inside with a thin paper, or using a metallic disc placed in the bottom of the cartridge case to prevent the flash hole to burn out. From December 1863, a new type of cartridge was also issued to the soldiers based on Silas Crispin's wrapped soft metal cartridge patent. The patent number was 40978, granted on 15 December 1863. Crispin was an assigner to Thomas Pulteney. These cases were rolled from a brass sheet covered with slow-free paper, and the cartridge was lighter and cheaper than the rubber case cartridges and were just as good in sealing the breech. Silas Crispin perfected his system in several patents. His third patent, in April 1864, described exactly the construction of the Smith carbine cartridges we know today as the Pulteney patent cartridges.
My Smith carbine is from the first production batch, and it was made by Massachusetts Arms from Pulteney. This little carbine shows a good amount of history. It is a war-weary piece, but the condition is still good for shooting. The Smiths, Pulteney and Massachusetts arm stamps are all visible on the left side of the receiver. The serial is from the later range of the first government order, probably from the last carbines delivered by the Massachusetts arms. A good proof of the first model is the sling swivel screwed into the buttstock. The rear sight is the folding leather sight, but no markings are visible. Due to the low muzzle velocity, the maximum sight range could not be more than 300-400 meters. The front sight is a heavily worn German silver blade. By opening the action, the split chamber is visible. The chamber with the forcing cone is clearly visible in the breech. The receiver accepts the other part of the case. Here we have the touch hole. Maintenance of the action is quite easy, as the side plate of the receiver can be removed. It is secured only with one screw. We have a very good access to the internal parts here. The brass button crosses the entire receiver, and it is secured from falling out with a small blocking screw. This is a very simple and reliable action. A good advantage of the system is the small number of parts. The trigger and the sear are the same parts, like on percussion revolvers. The tumbler has a notch for the half-cock for safety, just like on most of the black powder firearms. The Smith carbine has a 3-groove right-hand rifling with a slow twist rate, just as the rifle muskets. My rifling is not in bad condition, but I have a slight problem at the breech. The hole of the screw securing the forestock to the barrel was drilled too deep, so it pushed the metal into the rifling, creating a 0.5 mm obstruction in my barrel. It's not good to have it, but we can live with that. I drove a bullet through the bore to see how severe the problem is, and the engraving is clearly visible on the projectile.
Well, the carbine is definitely war-weary, but the barrel is in good condition, except for that one little problem at the breech area. The forestock is secured to the barrel by a screw, and that screw hole is so deep that it pushed the metal into the rifling, creating a little obstruction in the grooves. Otherwise, the carbine is in good shape and good shooting order. Let me show you now how I make the Crispin cartridges, which is a very interesting system.
The heart of the Crispin Pulteney cartridge is a 0.02 of an inch thick brass sheet covered with 2 layers of United States No. 1 laboratory paper. Its sizes were recorded by General Pittman in 1909. The case diameter was 0.652 inches, while its length was 1.375 inches. What you see here is one of my first attempts to make a working repro of the Crispin cartridge. This was the prototype to gain some experience for further trials. The brass sheet is replaced with beer can aluminium, an ingredient that is easy to use and a joy to create. The paper is ordinary wrapping paper. The Poltny cartridges were bundled in cardboard boxes. Each box contained 10 cartridges and 12 caps.
Ennyi maradt az egészből. Ha még egyet? Még 3. Azt a kurva élet.
Befogod a füled és még úgy is miért üt?
De lehet, hogy én ezzel lőnék egyet. Nem veszélyes. Jó. Hagyok mind a kettőtük, egyet történt vissza. Jó.
Király.
Azt a kurva élet. De.
Altogether, the first experiences were quite good. The concept did work well. There were some cases that cracked when gas could escape between the joint, so I knew that the construction has to be improved. Here is a slow motion video about a shot when the case cracked. See how the gas escapes at the breach.
Well, this first shooting was satisfactory. I had no misfires, and most of the shots hit the target in a fair group, while the action was properly sealed. I had only one case split caused by improper case length. As I forced the action to close, the case must have cracked, so the seal was imperfect. It did spit some gas on my hands. But it was not that severe as in the Sharps rifles. I also realized that the case length is crucial. When a force was necessary to close the breech, the group increased. The case diameter is also important, to place the bullet in the forcing cone as in line with the bore as possible. Both the India rubber and wrapped foil cartridges were charged with 50 to 52 grains of black powder and a 0.512 inch diameter 370-380 grain elongated bullet with one deep greaves groove. The powder granulation was finer than the musket powder, probably a close equivalent to today's FFG powders. Based on the drawings of Brigadier General John Pittman from 1909, the touch hole of the India rubber cartridge case was obstructed with a thin paper disc of 445 diameter, so in fact they did solve the problem of powder spilling out of the rubber case. Until the end of the war, 5.6 million rubber and 8 million wrapped soft metal cartridges were delivered to the US government. Let's talk about the reproduction of the Smith cartridges today, which is a very interesting topic. Finding cases for the Smith carbine is not a problem today because there are plastic and brass cases available in the market, and we can make our own cases from a silicon tube using 4570 brass cases cut to size. But we can also replicate the foil cartridge as well, so we have many options. The plastic cases hold 40 grains of powder, while the brass cases have a 24 grain capacity. Considering that the original cartridge case was charged with 50 grains, we can state that even the plastic cases cannot be considered a faithful, authentic historical reproduction. So this is why I began to think about planning to reproduce the Crispin cartridges. Dean S. Thomas's book titled The Round Bowl and Rimfire shares two important images on this subject. One is John Pittman's drawing of an original cartridge from 1909. The other is an unwrapped Crispin cartridge showing the layers of the construction. These were my guidelines for recreating the case. The bullet was much easier because Erasgon, my good friend Mark Hobbs, is making a very good reproduction of the original bullet, dropping exactly the same size and same weight bullet that we need.
Making a perfect cartridge needs research, experiments and good ingredients. This is how I make the correct size and working construction Crispin cartridges. The glue I'm using is simple school glue, nothing special. The size of the sheets will be shared in a few minutes. Start with gluing the thick paper layer on the inside of the aluminium sheet. The thickness of this paper is controlling the case diameter, so finding the right paper is essential for accuracy. Now attach the thin paper sheet to the outer side.
We will also need a mandrel for rolling the layers, so I turned a 0.5-inch diameter mandrel and rolled my first cases.
The size of the mandrel is crucial also for accuracy, as it is controlling the size of the case mouth and also controls the length of the case. This is why I turned the shoulder on my aluminium rod. And here are the proper measurements for the sheets, for both paper and the aluminium sheet, and also for the mandrel. When the sheet assembly is ready, it is time to roll the case from the direction of the thick paper. Apply some glue to the outer layer and let it roll. Now fold the bottom from 4 sides. Now hammer it flat using the mandrel. Punch a half-inch disc from cardboard and glue it into the bottom of the case. Let it dry and drill a 2 mm hole as a touch hole. Now put a half-inch thin paper disc in the bottom to prevent the powder from spilling out. Fill the case with 50 grains of 2F Swiss powder. And insert the dip-looped bullet. Probably this is the closest equivalent of the Crispin cartridges we can create today, so now it is time for a new 30-meter relay.
be honest, I was quite afraid that the problem in the breech area will affect the accuracy significantly. Usually the closer the damage is to the breech, the less problem it will cause, as the most important part of the rifling is the last 10 to 15 cm of the muzzle. But this protruding metal pin was so high, it cut a 0.5mm deep scratch into my bullet as I drove them through the bore with a wooden mandrel. I'm pretty sure that there are more accurate Smith carbines out there, but I was anything but disappointed. That little damage was not that severe as I first thought. I fired the rifle with 3 different cartridges, my Crispin repros, my plastic and brass commercially available cases, but all performed quite well.
Regarding the powder charge, my Crispin cartridges are surely closer to the original than any other possibilities, as this is the only case that can hold 50 grains. But although I had 10 more grains in the Crispin cartridges, the muzzle velocity of the plastic case was very close, proving the better seal. The brass-cased cartridge of course had much less energy, but the other 2 performed on the same level.
Actually, the rifle did work well with all the cartridge types, although the construction of the Crispin cartridges needed quite a few experiments. The proper diameter and length of the case are essential, as if the case is too long, the wall can crack, while if the diameter is too thin, the bullet will not chamber in line with the bore axis. This is why I had to play with the thickness of the paper sheets enveloping the metal layers.
During these range times I fired probably 300 shots with the rifle with different cartridges and charges, but I never had any misfires or stuck cases, proving the benefits of the Smith concept. Probably the only occasion I had to use some force to extract the cartridge happened at the last relay, when I loaded the carbine with my Repro Poltny Crispin cartridges after I fired the rifle with brass cases. The thick-walled brass cases did not expand into the chamber, so some residue built up on the chamber walls that grabbed my first spent metallic foil case strongly. But as I removed this case, it cleaned the chamber, so the next cases could be extracted easily.
It gets heavy to extract. And heavy to close. Looks like I just had to clean the residue from the brass cases. It was okay. Yeah, it works. Perfect. Good. The Dragon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the rifle actually works with the reproduction Poltny cartridges, and if I say that the group is good, there is, let's say, at least 40-50 shots in the rifle now, which means that the accuracy did not suffer. It's good, it works. Good experiment.
I had absolutely no misfires during my shooting relays. From the 3 cartridge types, the plastic case had the best seal, but none of the cases were as bad as the gas escape of the Percussion Sharps rifles. The clear winner among all the 3 cartridge variations was clearly the plastic case version. Both the sealing of the breech and both the accuracy was superior to the other 2 methods. But the biggest fun was to recreate the Crispin cartridge.
The accuracy of the brass cases was the worst among all types. Probably a different bullet would work well with the limited charge, but I was after the test of the original bullet, so probably that will be the topic of a later video about the Smith's carbine. The accuracy of the plastic case, 40 grains of 2F powder, and the Eras gun bullet is remarkable. This is something that can be a good start for a competition load. The Poltny Crispin cartridges performed quite well as well. In each case I evaluated only 4 shots out of a 5-shot relay, and the last was quite close to the performance of the plastic case cartridges.
The Smith's carbine was not only marketed on the military market, but in limited number it was also sold to the public during the Civil War. But the Smith's carbines and the capping breech loading concept became quickly obsolete in the late 1860s with the widespread of the rimfire and centerfire cartridges. As the war ended, the Ordnance Department did everything to get rid of as much of the guns they had on stock as possible. One option was to leave the guns with the users. A Smith's carbine or any other carbine or revolver could be bought by the soldier for as little as $8. Many of the surplus material were exported, for example to the largest conflict of the South American continent for the Argentine army, which was using the Smith's carbines in the Paraguayan War, what we also know as the War of the Triple Alliance. It was fought from 1864 to 70, and the Smith was used by the Argentine cavalry by the end of the conflict. Probably the last action of the Smith's carbine is related to the Fenian Brotherhood. It's an Irish Republican organization founded in the United States to put stress on the British government. In 1866 they planned to invade Canada, so they built up a large weapon stock. Most of the 1866 raiders were armed with the rifle muskets and also with Smith's carbines. The last batches of the military batches, or the last ones of the military guns, were probably sold by Francis Bannerman's surplus military venture in the early years of the 20th century. Bannerman offered these rifles at $2.75. As a comparison, the Sharps carbine by that time was 4 times more expensive. It was sold at $10 per piece. If you are researching such an interesting topic, it is good to have good books on your side. Let me show you and recommend you a few books that you can start with. The first one is Joseph G. Bilby's Civil War Firearms. This is an excellent book to start from. It is an overview on all the Civil War firearms, and it also gives some hints on the modern time use. The next book is written by Michael Santorelli. He's a real expert in Smith's carbines. I just received this book, let's see, 2 months ago, and this is a very good value. This is a very good information source for you. The third book gives you a detailed look on the cartridges. This is Dean S. Thomas's Rambo to Rimfire series. It has 4 volumes, and this is part 2. And this is dealing with the carbines, the breech loading carbines, an excellent source of information for you. As for a comparison with the Burnside carbine that I tested lately, I really have to say that even if my Smith's is less accurate, I still have to say that it is a better military arm for a horseman. Both carbines are good, don't get me wrong, but the break action of the Smith's is very comfortable on horseback. You can hold the rifle in your right hand, open it with your right hand, and you have a free left hand to handle the cartridge. Also, the access to the spent case is much better, so you have a much better grip on the cartridge case. For shooting the Burnside rifle, you have to hold the rifle in your left hand and open the trigger guard with your right hand, so this is clearly better on horseback. So ladies and gentlemen, I really hope that you enjoyed that little time travel again. Thank you very much for tuning into the Cap and Bell YouTube channel. If you like what I do, then please like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. If you wish to support us, you can do it through Patreon or by buying our authentic Civil War revolver cartridge boxes, or percussion revolver cartridge formers, or Arsenal bundle label stamps, or our 19th century rangefinder repros or stadias. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay cool and keep your powder dry.